Hello and welcome to another episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And this week, I don't have one fabulous guest. I have three. So we'll get to that in a minute. And this one's going to be definitely more on the PG side. So we're not going to be busting open a bottle of wine or anything because I've got some minors on the show this week. But first, I always like to say how I know my guests. And sometimes I like to tie in something to do with wine. So I was looking up different wines as far as fire, because we'll get into why fire in a minute. And I found a wine called Red Fire. It was a red Zinfandel, but that was kind of boring. But what else I found interesting related to the topic are the fires, tragic actually, but the fires that happened out in California, which really made quite an impact on the wine industry out there, especially in Napa Valley. They've had a lot of fires. But what I found interesting were the number of proprietors, owners of wineries who actually are volunteer firefighters. So they were fighting the fires and they said they're used to having fires in Northern California, but lately in the past few years, unfortunately, they're getting increased winds. And so that is impacting or affecting how serious the fires are and how quickly they spread. So I thought it was interesting. I did a quick read, just a couple owners of wineries that had to I guess they felt compelled to become volunteer firefighters, but a lot of the wine business in that region was affected, especially recently with the really bad 2020. There were some really bad fires. So I guess you can imagine, I should say, you should guess right now that we're going to be talking about firefighting. So my guest tonight is Kate Miller, and she's got her daughters with her. Carly and Tori, who are both teenagers. I always like to say how I know my guests. So, Kate, I actually met Kate at a bridal shower, I believe it was. My friend, Brian Cabillas, and I believe her cousin, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was there knowing nobody, literally, other than I think Brian and Kelly. And Kate and her family that I sat with were so nice and welcoming. Like, I felt like I was part of the family by the time I left. And Kate went on to open a bakery for a while in Clark Summit, the Mad Batter. I was able to do a girls' night there, a ladies' night of comedy and cookies and cupcakes. And she has been so sweet through the years, and pun intended, a lot of great sweet cookies, good stuff. And I bring the bitter, the comedy, the sarcasm. But Kate has been so generous to me through the years, and I followed her as she's changed different paths in her career. But one thing that's been pretty consistent, I think, in her life is that she's a volunteer firefighter. So welcome, Kate, and welcome to your daughters as well, Carly and
Thank you.
Tori. I'm so glad you guys could join us. Well, Kate, I wanted to talk to you first about it because I know that your daughters are following in your footsteps, which I think is great. Obviously, you've been a great role model. Tell me a little bit about the history, because I think there's some history in your family. Am I right there that with firefighting?
Yes. Yeah, I got started about 25 years ago. My dad was extremely involved in the fire company. He was in it probably about 55 years before he passed, but he was active that whole time. So
Wow.
I kind of just I went with him to the firehouse as much as I possibly could. I was down there. There's pictures of me from when I was like 4, 5 years old, sitting on the fire truck and just being around. That's how it kind of got started, was through him.
Wow. Well, my gosh. Praise to your dad for all of that, like volunteering, and because he was volunteer, right? Or he
He
wasn't
was.
professional. Yeah. So that's
Yep.
a lot to give of yourself. And I can't say I've had anyone in my family or myself, but that's a commitment and a great service to your community. So when did you actually start yourself volunteering?
It was June of 96. So I
Okay.
had to be, certain fire companies have age limits and I had to be 16 to join. So now I'm involved. I'm still with Blakely Hose Company. Obviously not doing much active there besides, the back end of things, but I'm still active with Clark Summit Fire Company, which is where the girls have joined. And that age limit's 14. So they were able to get in a little bit earlier than I was.
Okay. So you've been with the Abington Fire Company for a long time then,
Yep.
for quite a while. Okay.
Probably close to 20 years, 19,
Okay.
18, something like that.
Okay. And then Carly and Tori have both now. Carly, how long have you been involved with the fire company?
This August will be 2 years. So about like a year and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then Tori, have you been in the same amount of time, or when did you get involved?
I joined about a month ago.
Oh, okay. So you're new to the whole scene. Oh, you're a newbie. Okay.
Yeah.
Fresh blood here. So what made you girls? I mean, kids get a bad rap, and I'm sure you could tell, adults where to go. But a lot of times kids these days get a bad rap. It's like, oh, kids don't want to do anything, or they're always on their phones or whatever. What you're doing is great because you've got to balance schoolwork and all kinds of things. How did you was it just seeing your mom involved? What got you interested in doing it, Carly?
Well, both my parents are firefighters, and a lot of my cousins and both my grandpas and some of my uncles were too. So pretty much my entire family on both sides were firefighters. And so it just like ran in my blood. And so growing up in the fire company, I knew that I wanted to become a firefighter. And ever since I like met that age limit, because as soon as I turned 14, I could join, I was counting down the days until I could become a firefighter. I was so excited.
Oh, wow. And how about you? The same, Tori, would you say, or anything different you would add to that?
Pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same. And now you're just in it for a month, right? So it's all new to you.
Yeah.
How much have you girls been able to actually like do so far? I'm sure there's a lot of training. Obviously, they want to make sure you're safe. So you've been in it longer, Carly. Have you been able to do you actually go out to fires? And forgive if I ask ignorant questions, because I don't know. Honestly, I have no clue what is involved.
Yeah, they let us go to like all the calls that we get. But I'm not allowed to go into any fires yet because I'm under 18 and I don't have the training for it. But I am allowed to just help around the scene and do what they need and get what they need. And I'm able to take certain classes. So I have like an essentials of firefighting class. I took that about a year ago. And so I got a certificate for that. And now I have like some of the basics down.
Okay. And when you're on the scene, what are some of the things that you are allowed to do? Like, how can you help them?
So if they need to get water to the scene, they drop me off at the hydrant that's closest to the fire or the house. And I'll have to get the water from the hydrant to the fire truck. And then once that's done, I can go to the scene and I'll ask my officer what he needs done or what he or she needs me to do. I'll grab that.
Okay. So is this kind of like, are you the only girls in the station here, or are there other girls who've been doing it too?
There's about 3 other girls, including my mom, that are there too.
Okay. And do you ever have do your friends or people at school go, oh my gosh, why are you doing that? Or do they think it's cool? Do they think it's scary? What do they say?
They definitely think it's cool, but they also ask me so many questions about it because they just don't really understand it that much. And whenever I tell someone that I'm a volunteer firefighter, they take it as such a shock, and they always ask me so many questions then, because it's not very typical that a teenage girl is volunteering to be a firefighter.
Yeah, that's true. And so how do you feel about that? I'm sure when they're asking you, you seem like a really polite girl, you're going to answer their questions, but what do you think about that? I think things are changing for the better for women in society, but what do you think about that?
I still think it's really cool because everyone's still very interested in it, and they always think that it's super cool, and they're really proud and just really amazed by how much I do and what we do for the community. And so I think that it's really cool, and it makes them almost interested in it too.
Okay. Yeah. And that's great. And hopefully we'll reach a day in the years ahead where it's not so strange to have young women in it. That'll be kind of more common.
Yeah.
Tori, what do you think about your mom having done this for so long? What are some good words to describe your mom?
Brave.
Yeah.
You put her on the spot with that one.
Oh, did I now? Well, no, because I would think that, yeah, absolutely. Brave is right up there, right? You see your mom doing this. And I would think, is that how you guys felt were you ever scared for her or worried for her when she was doing this when you were young?
No, not really. Just because we grew up with it. So it was kind of second nature to us, and we didn't think of it to be weird for just to leave when there's a fire. and
Mhm.
you just kind of think, oh, that's just like normal.
Okay. So yeah, so you guys were used to it, but someone else might be like, "Oh my gosh, wow." So,
Yeah.
Kate, I have a similar question for you, and I'm sure that your answer might be the same. Are you, as a mom, you still have to be a mom, even though you've been a firefighter. Does it make you like a little, are you still a little nervous when, when the girls are involved going out on
Yeah,
calls?
I mean, there's definitely a little bit of nervousness if, because I've seen what can happen and what, people getting hurt and how easy it is, for things to happen. So I'm certainly, there's a little bit there. Um, Friends of mine think I'm a little crazy because, we'll have for training, we'll have our ladder truck up, which if we have it up, it's like 100 feet in the air. And, my mom gets nervous, or friends of mine are like, oh no, get your daughter off of there. And I'm the one who's going, no, get up there, get higher, go all the way to the top. So, I try to push them to do better or do more. But yeah, there's definitely, I think for any firefighter, there's always that little bit of nervousness, whether, a spouse or a family member sitting at home and they run out the door. So everybody still gets a little nervous with that, I think.
Yeah. Now you have, so, and I didn't forgot earlier to say that your husband, Jay, is also a firefighter. So now you have a whole family of firefighters. Do
Yeah.
you ever all go out at the same time, or is that not
Yeah.
heard of? You do? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Tori's still very new into it because she's only been in it a month, but we're hearing from a lot of people, a lot of our fellow firefighters, like not only with Clark Summit, but the neighboring companies think it's cool. And they're like, oh, you have your own company there, you need your own truck. But yeah, it's, we all tend to run out. Jay is the fire chief right now. So he typically will go to the scene. So the girls will hop in the car with me and we go to the firehouse and get the truck out. So
Okay.
but yeah, it's typical for the four of us to run out now.
Well, that's a real family affair there. I mean, that really is. How
Is.
does that affect? Because I mean, I know there's lots of positives, but there has to be a challenge as well. I mean, you guys have lives to lead. You're busy. You have clearly you have other activities. You have a day job. Jay has a day job. How do you balance it all?
Um, I guess just like any other parent, whatever we can schedule around it, we schedule around it. Being volunteer, a lot of people think that we're like on a shift or we have to go in, but it's all just on call. Like if something comes in, you're eating dinner, you drop what you're doing and you go. These two both play sports. And so they're very involved in that. And so right now Tori's kind of juggling doing that fire essentials class, and then also going to volleyball practice. And Carly does that with field hockey. So you try to schedule what you can schedule around your typical life and, go when you could go. So.
Is there ever a sense of, I'm sure, obviously depending on how many volunteers you have, like a sense of guilt, because you do have to have some downtime for you guys, where you can kind of just relax. Yeah. But is there ever like a sense of guilt? Because you obviously it's in your blood and you want to be the one to answer the call. So is that ever like a difficult thing where it's like, we really should just kind of stay home tonight, relax?
I don't know if we've had that moment where we said, oh, we can just, there has been times where, we're headed to a family function. And we'll, depending on like how close we are or how far away we are, yes, there is a little bit of guilt not being able to go to that call, and help out, especially if, we now have an app on our phones that can show how many people are responding, which is very helpful, but also it makes you nervous when you only see a couple people that are able to respond to that call. So, that's tough,
Yeah.
or if, myself or Jay are at work, and daytime is very hard for every fire company in the area. And, if there's a call that comes in and you only see two people on that's tough, because some of us can't leave work and, drop what we're doing, but
Yeah, that's something I actually had not thought of. How do they manage then? Because I mean, I imagine there might be some employers out there who are a little more, I guess, lenient that say, "Hey, you go, and if you have to finish your work up later, go." But I mean, that must be a challenge. How do they handle?
So typically if there's an actual fire or a big incident that's going on, a large motor vehicle accident or something like that, we heavily rely on the mutual aid, which is the fire companies in the area. So we have all different what we call box alarms. And so if there's a house on fire, and this happened maybe 2-3 months ago, we actually had to go to a third alarm to call that many companies, not because we needed the apparatus or because it was that big of a building, but because you needed the manpower. Okay. So there might have been 10 or 15 fire trucks that came, but there was only 2 or 3 guys on each one. So that's, sometimes you have to do that and rely on the help of, your neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah. And along those lines with being, with your neighbors, before I said, do you ever feel guilty? But I would also imagine there's a great sense of pride and connection and commitment because this is your neighborhoods. This is your community that you live in, that you're helping. I would imagine, and even for the girls, this question, I do feel especially proud because these are like people that possibly, right? That you could be helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to feel pretty good, right?
Yeah, it does.
I saw something on your mom's Facebook the other day. I don't know if it was Carly or Tori. Something about an axe and a piano. I know the people listening are gonna be like, what what was that about? You're not learning.
I'll let her tell that story.
Okay.
Oh, I was at training and then we got to go inside a house that they were gonna tear down, and there was a piano in there. So I got to play the piano with an axe.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty different kind of experience. I was just thinking, wow, that's pretty talented if you can play the piano with an axe.
Yeah,
That's
we don't get that opportunity that often, but sometimes when there's a house that's scheduled to be torn down for whatever reason, they will contact the fire company and let us do some training in there, which we wouldn't typically get to do. But
yeah.
So it's a good opportunity when that happens. This one just so happened to have a piano in there.
Yeah, I read it quick and I'm like, I don't know. Is that it's a maneuver or what is that all about? I don't know what that's about. Definitely different. No, that's great though when you do, like you said, those opportunities for training because that's so important, I'm sure, getting the proper training, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest part is, everybody can join, but you need to have some training and knowledge and know what you're doing so that you don't get hurt or you don't hurt somebody else. And, there's a lot of training hours that go into it, but it's worth it.
Yeah. And now you said, so 18, someone has to be 18 to actually fight the fire. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's a Pennsylvania state law. So even with their ages at 14 and 15, there's only certain hours that they're allowed to respond, because of, child labor laws and stuff. But yeah, you have to be 18 or older to be able to enter a structure that's on fire.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I would imagine, I mean, you've been doing it a long time. Jay's been doing it a long time. Are there any things that any times, I'm sure there are many, but is something maybe you'd want to share with the audience that are particularly important to you or special or something that really made an impact on you that was whether it was a big call or anything that stands out in your memories of all the years that you've been involved with this?
Yeah, there's a lot of really good memories, some bad memories, you take the good and the bad. You lean on each other with that. We constantly have those stories that we go back to and, hey, remember this one, remember that one. Probably more recent, I would say, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Valentine's Day. There was a tractor trailer accident coming off 81 in Clark Summit. And it took, I think there were 3 rescues. It was Clark Summit, Chinchilla, and Dixon City rescue trucks there. We were there for 6 hours trying to get the tractor trailer driver out. He was very badly entrapped. So there was a lot to it. It even brought like an ER doctor out to the scene, because, it was pretty bad. It didn't look good, but we ended up eventually getting him out, and he's, perfectly fine at this point, I guess. We thought that he would maybe have to lose a leg or something like that along the lines because of how bad the accident was. But everything was saved. I'm sure with a little bit of physical therapy, he was able to get back to normal. So, that's like a good feeling, is when you think that it's a very tough call and it's not going to be a good outcome, but then you work together with everybody and you get it done, and it's a great outcome. So something like that really carries with you for a while, I think.
And that was Valentine's Day. So I have to ask too, it must be nice, or it's a good thing that you and Jay are both in this, because I would imagine someone might be upset if it was like, oh, it's Valentine's Day, I'm going to go out. Now, of course, I know if you're a selfless person, but it's hard to be selfless, all the time. You want to be selfish. You want the time with your special person or whatever, your husband, your wife. So you guys share this as an activity. So that's kind of good too, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's frustrating. You know how they say you don't want to, some people don't want to work with their spouse. So some people don't want to fight fires. It's,
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah. Now you mentioned before the good, the bad. It's got to be a lot though, too, just like a stressful kind of thing too. How do you release stress, or don't you see it that way? Because I would think there's a lot of emotions, like depending on what the call is and everything.
Yeah, and it becomes stressful. It becomes even after long after the call, it can be very a mental tough thing to get through some of these calls with stuff that first responders see and what they go through. There is, whenever there's typically stuff that happens in Clark Summit, if we have a rough call, we try to call in the team of what do I want to call it? The, therapists and stuff that come in and help, so you could sit and talk to them. I know that our company and most companies in the area are very good about that if you need to talk to anybody or you need help, they will set it up and, they'll get you where you need to be. But I will say, between our company and then even, like I said, the neighboring companies, it's really a family situation. We'll bust on each other all the time, but when bad stuff happens, we kind of lean on each other as well. And that's those things that you kind of talk to these new members that come in and say, listen, you're going to go home and talk to your parents or your brother and your sister or whoever about this call, and they're not going to understand it. They're not going to understand what you saw or what you're going through. So call one of us. Reach out to any of us and we'll sit and talk with you. So, we kind of try to lean on each other with that.
That's great. So it's great to have that support network, because I would again, with this kind of high emotion, it's great to have that in place for everybody. Let me ask the girls, Carly and Tori, do you see this? Now you can obviously do this as volunteers for as long as you want in your future. Would you ever consider doing it as a career or anything related in your future?
I was thinking about it for a little bit because it is something that I really enjoy, but I'm also very interested in wanting to go into the field of psychology. So I thought maybe a way that I can incorporate it is what my mom was describing earlier, being a psychiatrist for people who are struggling with just having stress after a call or something that you've seen, and it's hard to overcome it and get back to normal after seeing that. So I feel like that might be something that I might be interested in, so that it incorporates both the psychology that I want to pursue and firefighting.
I think that's awesome. That's a great idea. I mean, because you would know where people are coming from. So you'd know firsthand. And considering, even in the military, people with PTSD, and I'm sure there's some degree with firefighters who've seen a really bad situation. That's awesome. What about you, Tori? I know it's early for you now, but what do you think you might want to continue it in your future, or maybe do something professionally?
I don't really know what I want to do yet, but I think that might be an option of becoming a career firefighter.
Okay. I mean, hey, you're so young. I mean, you could change your mind 1,000 times, right? There's plenty of time. I was looking up online before. I think that says that career wise, that there's still like only about 5% of professional firefighters or career firefighters are women. So there's still a long way to go as far as getting more women in that field. Do you ever feel like this question's for Kate and for everybody there, for all the girls? Do you feel like pioneers to some degree? Because you're still kind of, I would think, a little bit in the minority, right?
I think we're definitely like in Lackawanna County, I mean, it's majorly in the minority. So I think it's great. Even when I was growing up, there was one or two women that I can even remember in our fire company or in the neighboring fire company that I looked up to. And I thought it was great that they were doing that. So I don't know if, I mean, you typically don't feel that way, but I'm sure that's, I've gone to parades or whatnot, and I'm driving the fire truck, and there's so many people that will, mostly ladies, even like older women or what, oh, look, it's a girl driving, yay, like, and they get really excited about it. And I mean, that's a good feeling. So, and I tell the girls that is, there's little girls out there that are going to look up to you that you're doing this,
Yeah.
so yeah.
That's great. I mean, you never know who you're inspiring. That's the thing.
Right.
And even if you don't hear it, there's someone out there looking, going, oh my gosh, that's really cool. Like, yeah, definitely. So that's awesome. I think it's fantastic. The three of you are doing this because again, you're going to be inspiring other young girls who will see you out there. And I think that's great. Now, do the girls get to be in the parades then too? I forgot all about parades. So you get to like wave and throw out candy.
Yep. Yes.
That could be more dangerous with the candy. No, I'm just kidding. You got to watch those young kids that come running after you.
Yeah.
Anything else in closing before we wrap up here? I think I asked you all the questions more or less that I had planned. Anything else that you feel should be known, that people should know, whether it's women in particular or anybody, about firefighting or what it's done for your lives?
I mean, I feel like it's very fulfilling. I mean, obviously there's definitely some stress that comes along with it and pretty much anything that you do. When you go out and there's any kind of call or anything that you feel that you're helping somebody, it's a good feeling. And I mean, first responders, whether it's women or men, it's tough field. And I think, even on the, if you want to take this a step further, the volunteer side of it, there's so many people that don't even realize that we get paid $0 for this. We do so many fundraisers and whatnot to raise money to buy tools for our fire trucks and stuff like that. But I mean, even in the last year or two, meeting other sports parents and whatnot, they say, oh, you work for the fire company. And I say, well, I volunteer. And they say, what do you mean? How much do you get paid? And I say, I don't get paid anything. And they said, what? Like there's so many people that don't realize, that, the majority of the fire companies in Lackawanna and even Luzerne County are volunteer, or even Susquehanna, but a lot of the companies in this area are volunteer. We don't get paid for it. So if you see a fundraiser for a fire company, it's not so that we could get a paycheck for it. It's so that we can, buy new gear or stuff that we need,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's an important point. And again, I'd like to thank all three of you because it's very selfless what you're doing. And to your point, people misunderstand sometimes, or they're not clear on what you're doing. You're giving of your time, and in some cases, potentially risking harm if it's a dangerous situation. So so thank you for that. Do you have anything that we can give a shout out to, any kind of fundraisers coming up or anything that we can watch for your company?
We typically do stuff, we'll post stuff on our Facebook page with Clark Summit Fire Company. I don't think we have anything immediate in the next month or two. I think our envelope drive is probably going out soon. But other than that, we don't have anything immediate. I know some of the companies around us do. So Facebook's the biggest and easiest way we get stuff out there. So like, if you check Clark Summit or Blakely Hose Company or, Dixon City or Chinchilla or Dalton, any of them really. Look up your local fire company, just look it up on Facebook, and there's typically stuff posted all the time.
Yeah.
And even last year we weren't looking for monetary donations during COVID and stuff. We were looking for people just to drop off a case of water, because that's certainly helpful. We go through water like crazy, especially in the summer. If we go on a call or if we're training, that's stuff that we go through a lot. So, there's so much cost to it that, anything helps. And that, most guys, we're just happy to be involved,
Yeah. Okay.
So.
All right, girls, any last words from you or anything that you'd want people to know that we didn't talk about?
No, probably not. I would probably just say, for like anyone listening or thinking about like anything that they would want to do, like don't let anything get in the way of that, whether it is firefighting or just anything else. Like don't let something stand in the way of what makes you happy and what you want to pursue.
Go after it.
Great advice. Yeah. How about you, Tori? Anything you wanted to add?
Tori's the quiet one in the family.
Yeah, I don't want to put her on the spot. That's okay. If you don't, that's cool. That's fine. I think that's a great way to end there, what Carly said. And I also kind of wanted to go back to what Kate, you had said before, encouraging Carly when that ladder is up 100 feet, like go up higher, go up higher. I think it's so important. Now, not every mom may agree. They might be more scared or whatever, but really encouraging your kids to pursue what they want to go after and to overcome fears. That's one of the, as a kid, I probably had, and again, everyone's raised differently, but like, I was more of a scared kid. So I didn't try anything scary or risky till in my 20s when I did, stand-up comedy and improv, because that's a different kind of scary, but it's good because there's always something good on the other side of the scary. Once you accomplish something, it's a great sense of pride. You've helped people. So it's definitely worth overcoming those fears. And as Carly said, don't let anything get in your way. That's great advice. All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. And so definitely for those of you listening, check out wherever you're listening from. There are volunteer firefighters everywhere, and those communities, the companies could definitely use your help. As Kate said, whether it's a donation, whether it's water, just support these fundraisers because they're very important to the community. They're very important for helping us, and we're very grateful to have them. So thank you so much. And you've been listening. Thank you. You've been listening to another episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. If you liked this episode, please remember to subscribe and share. And if you didn't, please just tell your dog or your goldfish, or feel free to message me privately. And we hope you'll return again soon to listen to Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl.